Have you ever wondered what would happen if Luffy was reborn with all of his memories and powers? Would he manage to defeat his enemies early this time around, or would he accidentally change everything for the worse? So, the story begins the same way it did in the main timeline. Luffy is born, and eventually Garp drops him off at Fuchsia Village. Over time, with knowledge of how the first few years of his life will play out, Luffy will decide to keep his future memories to himself until Shanks arrives. However, as soon as Shanks gets on the island, we'll see the first big difference in this timeline. For starters, Luffy will beat up the mountain bandit on his own, this time using Haki, but what's even more interesting is that due to this, Shanks won't lose an arm. After Luffy eats his devil fruit, he'll reveal everything to Shanks' crew. At first, Shanks wouldn't believe Luffy's story about knowing the future. However, with his knowledge of how his devil fruit works, Luffy would instantly surprise Shanks with his ability to transform into his Nika form. This transformation would be proof enough for Shanks to take Luffy for his word. Shanks will then leave Luffy behind, promising to meet again. But before that, Luffy will ask Shanks for his hat, explaining how it was his most prized possession and was symbolic of their promise to meet again. Shanks will gladly oblige, seeing something special inside the boy. In the time that follows, Luffy will pretend that he's just a regular kid in front of Garp, Dadan, Ace, and Sabo. He'll do this in order to enjoy his limited time with them again, and also to prevent changing anything significant in the story. Eventually, he'll single-handedly defeat the Blue Jam Pirates without letting Ace or Sabo get involved using his Haki. Sabo will still try to leave the Goa Kingdom during the Celestial Dragon's visit, and surprisingly enough, I believe Luffy would let him do it. He already knows Sabo will survive and get rescued by Dragon, and he'll get the chance to help thousands of people as a Revolutionary Army member. Several years later, Ace will ask Luffy to join him on his journey since this version of Luffy is a lot stronger and more capable than his main story self. But Luffy will refuse so that he can meet his crew again and let Ace experience his own adventure. Luffy will then train on his own now in secret in order to master his advanced Conqueror's, Armament, and Observation Haki skills. At 17 years old, Luffy will finally leave Fuchsia Island behind. He'd do it in the exact same way as before, hiding in a barrel in order to make sure he meets his crew again. After the Alvida pirates find him, Luffy will help free Kobe and take him to Shellstown. At Shellstown, he'll retrieve Zoro's swords for him in exchange for the swordsman joining his crew. Afterward, Luffy will tell Zoro that they need to go to Orangetown next to get their navigator. Although he wouldn't understand what Luffy means by this, he would follow along. Once they get there, the duo will free Nami from the buggy pirates after talking to the inhabitants of Orangetown. Seeing Luffy's overwhelming strength, the buggy pirates would immediately surrender this time around and would leave the island. Realizing just how overpowered Luffy really is, I believe that in this version of the story, Nami would be honest with him and tell him about Arlong and her village.